Have you ever used before? Actually, no, I'm not gonna put that on video.
Yeah, let's discuss that off the record. Let's
Yeah.
discuss that off the record.
Ask that experience.
Hi, welcome back to the Benchmarkers Rugby Show. My name is Kumbi. I am one of your co-hosts. I'm a data scientist, but most importantly, as usual for these videos, I am a rugby enthusiast, and I'm joined by my fellow co-host.
Hey guys, my name is Nyasha. I too am a data scientist, and
Right.
for the purposes of this show, I am the AI stats guy. I bring you the stats, the analysis to complement Kumbi's eye test, and
Yeah.
hopefully, together we provide value, and we think we make the perfect pairing.
Absolutely. Yeah, right. So, semi-final number 2, South Africa versus England, right? So obviously we've gone through both semi-finals, so it's finals week this week between
Yeah.
South Africa and New Zealand. But before we get to that, we're just going to cover a very close game between, that was unfortunately, the only close game in the semi-finals. Close game between England and South Africa. Came down right to the wire. South Africa won it in the 78th minute. And so we're just going to cover that, see how South Africa won the game, right? So we're going to go through the stats. We're going to give context to the stats because really this was one of those games where stats couldn't really tell a full picture of the story, which might actually be, that's usually the story with semifinals, finals, tight games like this. So we'll give context to the stats as well, and then we'll look forward to the final between the Springboks and the All Blacks, right? So Nyasha, do you want to kick us off rather, with the data?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so really we're going to only focus on a few aspects of the game, which are the scrums, the kicks, and
Right.
the penalties,
Right.
because ultimately that is what we feel decided the game.
Yeah.
We don't really get into things like decisions, external decisions, despite what's going on.
Yeah,
So
right.
starting off with scrums, right? South Africa had. So South Africa won 7 out of the 8 scrums,
Right.
and England 3 out of 7, right? So that's 42% success rate for England
That
and
is a low
87% at this level. That's, I mean, granted, listen, right? So we will get into the context, but
Right.
I don't think England got in there, looking to win scrums, right? And then just looking at kicks from hand and kicking
Yeah.
meters.
Right.
Right, England had 41 kicks from hand, South Africa 29, and kicking meters 961, or meters from the kicks 961, and for England and 837 for South Africa, right,
Yeah.
showing a stark difference there. And then just looking at the penalties conceded, right? Since this game, it was a kicking game. The penalties
It was.
conceded ultimately are what decided everything.
Right.
That's 11 penalties conceded for England and 8 penalties conceded for South Africa.
Right.
So yeah, we will get into other things such as the weather, but Kumbi, for now, this is the analysis.
Right,
These
I
are
think-
the stats. Yeah.
I mean, obviously, the biggest thing is just to get right off with the scrums. That was probably the most decisive thing in the game. I think the one deciding player, obviously, in my opinion, was Ox and Chair. We did mention in the pre-game that Ox is probably the best scrummager in the world, and I think it showed, right? The fact that South African can scrum from anywhere on the field, they can get a penalty and drive them down the field. I mean, to be honest, like if we're going to be very honest, South Africa hasn't had good games in the quarterfinal, and even more so in the semi-final. Right, so they really weren't in the game. I think with about 68 minutes on the clock, they were, I think, more than one score up. I think it was a 9-score game. The score was 15-6, if I'm not mistaken. And it didn't look like they were going to get into the game. They didn't have momentum. They didn't have anything. But it's the fact that they can scrum from anywhere, get the penalty because of Ox, and then, well, I mean, Ox and the rest of the team, but mostly Ox, right? But the fact that you can get a penalty from anywhere on the field, and then, whether you want to kick for goal like they did with Pollard in the 78th minute, or you want to then kick it down to get it driving more. Whatever it is, it's the fact that you're getting penalties from scrum. I think this is the most deciding thing, the deciding thing in the game. Obviously, there have been conversations about, is it too dominant? Should World Rugby do something? I think that's just, people complaining and whining. No offense,
Same.
but yeah, I think, but it's an element of the game. They're really good at it, and I think they have to use what they're good at, right? So that's probably the main thing. The fact that England lost 4 of their own scrums. It's the fact that South Africa can call a scrum off a mark. It's the fact that they can, the moment, because I think one of you mentioned kicking, right? England,
Yeah.
because for South Africa it's the scrum. The thing that worked well for England, because they don't really have a good attack. Their scheme isn't really good. The attacking scheme isn't great with ball in hand. Their backline isn't really on form. Their wings and their back three either is old or is getting old, is slow or is getting slow, right? I mean, no offense to
Yeah.
English fans out there,
You're
but
really going in.
but what they do well is they play to their strengths, and that's the reason why. Several weeks ago, we made a video on like the contenders of the World Cup. England were one of our four contenders. We said they've got a good chance of winning because they know what what their strengths are and they're good at it, right? The fact that everyone said that the Argentina game was boring, they kicked 27 points, but they're good at that, right? So I think they could have gotten away with just that game plan in this game because they're good at the kicking game. It's just that
Yeah.
obviously at the end, South Africa was just better at the scrum time. So I'm basically talking about the other elements of the game just to say that okay, their kicking is really good. They know what they because they've got Freddie Stewart who not only can diffuse the other team's kicking game, which he did really well, especially in the first half. But it's the
Yeah.
fact that now you can also kick as well and then get possession back most of the time. So I think they did really well in kicking. And then you said you're going to mention the weather as well. The weather conditions. South Africa I think dropped a couple of balls. One that I can remember or two that I can remember specifically. Orense, I think he dropped a ball close to the five. Same with Willems. I think he had caught a ball. It had been going to ground and then it just slipped out of his hands and then it went into touch and then it's England's line out at the South African 5 meter line.
Yeah.
Right. So they did really good at the kicking game, right? It's just that now it's we always say this, right? It's, you can get stats correct, but it's when do you get them correct and when do you get them wrong, right? One of I think the last penalty. Obviously, Andre Pollard kicked that 78th minute. We know what happened. It was from a scrum. But that actually came from a Freddie Stewart bomb, an up and under, which usually he's going to regather and collect. But he got that wrong, knock on, and then South African scrum, and then they get the penalty, and then that's how they get that correct. So yes, England did that. They did that really well. The kicking game, they really played that quite well. It's just the fact that just those two, just that one thing, and then also I think the scrum before that a few scrums before that, they had kicked a little bit too long. That's when South Africa caught the ball in their 22, called the mark, and then got the scrum penalty once again, right? So you have no room for error at this stage. You can't
Yeah.
afford to give South Africa scrum at any point, and I think that's probably where they got things wrong. So yeah, I mean, no offense to English fans. I hope we didn't lose some subscribers there, but really, I think it just speaks to like the strengths of both teams when they got those strengths correct. I think England got everything correct that they were doing right up until that last 10 minutes, and then South Africa just only needed that last 10 minutes to get
Yeah.
what they're good at right. So. Yeah, that's essentially how. I mean, if I'm going to
Yeah,
summarize
that's
the game,
yeah.
yeah,
No, man, that's all good. Yeah, so I do agree. You should play to your strengths, right?
absolutely,
And
yeah,
I mean, people will always whine because if England had won by
yeah,
just kicking the ball, oh my
right,
word,
right,
it's so boring. It's right, but you play to your strengths, right?
yeah, right,
South Africans like are large and they're huge, right? So
yeah,
and pretty much the best scrummers they are. So they play to their strengths.
absolutely,
Right, and they had a clear strategy. And let's be honest, going into this game, we knew how each team was going to play, right? Maybe we
absolutely. Yeah,
didn't.
there's no secrets with these teams.
Yeah, exactly, right. Granted, we didn't expect South Africa to be so bad.
Yeah,
I don't think. While I do believe they deserve to be in the final,
yeah,
isolating it down to that one particular game, maybe it's a bit of emotions, but I don't think they particularly deserve to win that particular game
yeah,
because they
right.
played so badly. But then, like you said, at this level, it's a game of margins, and there are external factors. So even looking at the weather, that weather. I mean, that was British weather, right?
Right, right, yeah,
It
yeah,
was rainy, it was damp. That's British weather, and things like that do play into a game, especially at an elite level.
absolutely, yeah,
At elite level, fine margins. Because I mean, looking at the different penalties, 11 and 8. If it was just 12 and 8, and that 12th one came in when England was getting close to our territory near the end, and what if they gone in in range, scored right from a knock on, for example. Sorry,
yeah,
from a not from a knock on, from a knock on scrum penalty, and then something like that. But anyway, the point being, they could have gotten a penalty, right? And at this stage, those fine margins matter a lot. And one thing we were looking at analysis, looking at the previous games for all that we have with the data on, right? There's a strong correlation between, like if it's raining and the number of knock-ons. Obviously, you don't need to be a genius to point that out, right? Right. But things like that do genuinely play, do have a role, right?
Yeah.
If you remember, was it Willemse? You said who was in the five, who just couldn't get the ball, right?
Yeah, right.
And
slipped out of his hands.
And looking at the replay, slow motion, right? He's trying everything, cannot catch the ball, right? Lose it. So those type of things do really play a key role, right? I think if it was a dry match, I don't think it would have been as close, to be honest, right? We cannot, if I'm being honest, we can also talk about their them not resting any players, pretty much using the same squad. I'm not going to say they look tired, but they didn't look as impactful, right? And things like that do play a role. But one thing I will say is, it is so hard to kick a ball. It is very hard to kick a ball far in a place like Paris compared to like South Africa, which is a very high altitude, low density area, right?
Yeah.
Getting a kick that accurate for Pollard straight down the middle from so far away, right? So much drag on the ball, right? That's world class. And to win even against England or against any opponent at this level, you do have to be world class. So yeah, these are the other factors that were just playing in. But ultimately the stats can't show everything. There are little nuances and little external factors that we may not appreciate as much when we're watching on the screen. But ultimately it was a good showing from both teams, and thoroughly. Well, I can't say I enjoyed that game.
I enjoyed it.
I did not enjoy the game, but I really thought England was going to win. England was going to win. I was not enjoying that game. But anyway, it was a good finish.
Yeah, but I mean, just also mention one thing before we wrap it up. So you also mentioned the penalties, right? Because obviously England at 11, South Africa at 8, right? So I think I really have to give credit to you. I know I seem to talk bad about England at the beginning of the video, but I think I really need to give them credit, because one of the things that they did was they got in South Africa's faces, right? It's just because we talk about, South Africa has that rush defense. We didn't really get to see it because obviously they didn't really play through the line a lot, but England got into South Africa's faces, not only on defense, but it's also those little niggly plays, what people call handbags and whatnot, where there's just a push and shove. So it's all those things, but I think maybe one can argue that they might have done it a little bit too much, because you look at the Mani Tuilagi penalty. I think it was in the first half, where the penalty was reversed. England had the penalty, and then he just grabs Reinach by the neck. And then you also look at Owen Farrell refusing to give South Africa back the ball. They get marched 10 meters down the field, and now it becomes a kick-off ball penalty for the Springboks. So they did things correct, but it's just that they might have just gotten things wrong just a little bit, right? Just credit to England. I think they know what they're good at. It might not be as exciting. I really enjoy England games personally. Like I love all kinds of rugby. So I think they're good at what they do. So I think for me it's enjoyable to watch. But just going forward with SA, obviously now we look forward to the final. We'll have a review when the teams come out. But just I think it'll be interesting to see not only who plays those games, but who starts, who's on the bench. Do they start the bomb squad guys? Do they want to start well, or do they start, because we spoke about guys like Willemse, Reinach as well, Libok. They made some mistakes, and then they were also substituted off the field immediately after mistakes. So does that affect their confidence? Do they come off the bench now? That's all those dynamics will be interesting to see. So when the teams come out, please do look out for a review. Check it out, and we're definitely looking forward to the final on Saturday. So that is our preview, or our review for the semi-final.
But going on, thank you for the support.
Absolutely.
Thank you for the massive support in the last video. That there was over 10,000 views, but more importantly, the comments as well. It's very engaging. It was, I guess, a bit of a risk putting out a rugby channel that's very analytics heavy, but we're very happy with the reception and
Yeah.
the good feedback
Yeah, right.
that we're getting. So thank you. Otherwise that's it for me. We'll see you in the next episode when the squads come out. Kumbi?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's it for me. Please don't forget to like. We always appreciate, just like Nyasha said, like, comment, subscribe to the channel. We appreciate your feedback. And we'll see you in the next video, which will be the finals review. All right.
Okay, cheers.
Cheers.